Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you to our session of exploring dynamics of global mobility. I am Kavita, a global HR recruiter in Ispahan. I am passionate about connecting talent with opportunities on a global scale. Today, I am excited to discuss with Vidji how global mobility shapes career. I wanted to provide you a glimpse of today's session. We will have 35 minutes of discussion on various topics, followed by 10 minutes of question and answer session. During the event, feel free to write down your questions in Q&A session. We will address them in the last 10 minutes. If time does not permit, we will send you responses by email or set up a call to discuss in more in detail on one-on-one basis. So here I like to introduce our global mobility expert Vidji.
Thank you, Kavita. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Good evening, maybe somewhere around the world. I see Matthew from India is here, and people have joined from other countries as well. So it's a pleasure having me here. So my name is Thanabal Vidjayaindra. Most people in Norway know me as Vidji. I've been doing this global employee mobility and compensation and benefits for multinational corporations for the last 24 years. So I have some experience I would like to share with others. And I'm sure those who are here have some other input or maybe even other experience to share. So I would love to have this discussion later. And my focus always have been to two different areas. One is to secure that mobility strategies are comply with various regulations, and second is actually to deliver that compliance with a cost-effective manner. So that is where we actually are focusing today. How can we see the global mobility in different perspectives, and how do we actually manage to have a good strategy for making global mobility a smooth HR function in any organization? Yeah.
Um, thank you, Vidji, for brief introduction. I have long list of questions for you, and I will come back to you very soon. So first, I wanted to present about Ispahan. Ispahan is Norway headquartered global talent service provider. We specialize in global recruitment, people management, global mobility, and business support. Additionally, we have our platform that is called Cross Border, and we provide visa and immigration assistance, relocation services, tax and legal compliances, and also health and wellness support, also cultural training as well. So in today's agenda we will talk about our services about global mobility, or dynamics and types of global mobility, cost and risk involved in global mobility, and we will also talk about some success stories and global trends about in this area. So now, going forward, uh, Vidji, I have a question for you. If you can briefly take us through the evolution of global mobility from its early days to the diverse, complex concept it has today. So, stage is yours now.
Thank you, Kavita. Yeah, the journey of global mobility is fascinating. I've been working with this for multinationals since mid 90s, and I have seen a kind of an evolution, starting everything. I mean, if I see it from a headquarters perspective or a home country perspective, in the very beginning we had the term called the expatriates. People were kind of moved from their home countries to other locations to kind of start the new business or lead a group of people, or even to enroll your own company culture in other subsidiaries. So it was expatriations, and then we actually started receiving people from other subsidiaries into headquarters. So that means that the people were actually called impatriates, so impats. And then we started having cross border between third countries, like, okay, Norwegian headquarters having subsidiaries in Belgium and Singapore, and there were people moving from Singapore to Belgium. So it was also in the administration of global mobility. So we call them third country nationals, and it brought some other kind of challenges to the table than the one that we had when we were dealing with the expatriations, like going abroad from Hong Kong. And after this, we saw a shift from the traditional long-term or short-term, whatever the type of expatriates or impatriates, to commuters and rotational. I'll come back to that types later. And then we see the rise of cross-border assignments. I mean, you see that Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Netherlands, Belgium, Canada, USA. There are people who are actually moving, traveling every week and come back home on a kind of commuter basis. And that also brought the same kind of challenges like taxation, social security, insurance, all that actually are the common issues. And today we see the global employee mobility as a umbrella term to include all these kinds, because companies have become more global and moving people have become one of the task for the HR. So we see a global employee mobility as a big term today. We will go on and talk something into the detail later.
Yeah, this is interesting to know about a story of global mobility. You can say I heard about the term diverse assignment types. So, can you tell us about different types of global mobility, or you can say different types of assignments related to global mobility?
Yes, thank you for that question, because I started by saying this type of long term or short term. So I will start by introducing the term long term assignment. So it's actually a type of assignment where I think I should have the next slide, and um, you have these various types, but very common in the very beginning when we're talking about expatriates or long-term assignment. That means from 1 year to up to 5 years in one and the same location was actually called a long-term assignment. In most of those cases, employees were actually moving to a new location with their family, spouse and kids all together. So that brought a lot of issues for the HR and for the companies to deal with. And after a while, we see that need for long term wasn't that important, but they needed people on a short term projects in various locations. So they started sending people for 6 months up to 1 month, 1 year, or even for 18 months was maximum they call a short term assignment. And compensation and benefits and other issues were a bit different compared to the long term. Then, of course, we talk about the commuter assignments, and the commuter assignment was more common in the European Union. People could actually move from anywhere to anywhere. That was the purpose of EU, but it brought actually a lot of issues. Although they were talking about harmonization within EU, but the taxation, social security, and other issues were actually a big challenge. And we saw in Norway and other countries, for example, in the oil and gas industries, the rotational assignments became one of those frequently used, because people had to move to offshore platforms or other locations to work, and they worked 4 weeks and then came home for 2 weeks. So we call it 4-2 or 3-3 or 6-1, whatever the combination they had. So it was also kind of um, in the same basket, like, okay, we have to deal with all these issues like moving them from one to another, relocation. And then we see an increasing use of extended business travelers. I mean, business travelers is a very common term we are using because people are moving from one to another just to make one presentation or just for observation or just to take part in a meeting. But in some cases, people who travel tend to extend their stay or extend the number of days or number of times they travel to same location. So that brought actually the attention to the authorities. I mean, what is your purpose of visiting so many times to this location? What are you actually doing? Who is your employer? And so on. So companies had to report the purpose, and in many cases, it happened reactively rather than proactively. So here we have to be careful. And global normal assignments. This is very popular amongst the millennials or the IT professionals, where they could do their job from anywhere. So they brought their PC and moving from one to another country and location, and then employer had to deal with some of those issues like paying salary, insurance, and taking care of the employees and duty of care and all those things actually became a bit complicated. And then we see the virtual assignments. Employees work for an overseas office but remain in their home country. Like you find your talent in Spain for a position in Norway or in India, but the employee actually wants to work from his home in Spain. Is it possible? What are the challenges? So this is actually this has become more famous after the pandemic and with the increasing use of remote working. And you see the permanent transfer assignments, like you have to go out of your borders, geographical borders, and employ the skills that could happen, that you are going out of your country and employ people for filling the skill needs in the local market. So you have to move people on a more permanent basis, not a very short term or long term assignment coming and going back, but it is a move. We call it an international transfers.
Okay, thank you, Vidji, for clarification on types of employee mobility. I am wondering before meeting you, I was thinking that only moving one candidate or employee from one location, one country to another is global mobility. But now I know that it's a vast topic
Yeah.
to discussion. Yes. Now I should like to engage our audience in this conversation. We have an online poll that will give us glimpse into your thoughts and experience on global mobility. The poll is short and straightforward, and I encourage everyone to take a moment to share their views. The poll is now on your screen. We will discuss results in few moments then.
Interesting to see which companies are using what type of assignment. Are you familiar with all the
Exactly.
types? And that would give us a bit
Yeah,
a
and I
taste
am
of.
excited to see what is
Yeah,
the
it'd be
highest.
interesting
Yeah.
to see what is actually increasing in use and what challenges we need to kind of work on
Yep.
in the time to come. Are you all able to participate? You see this poll?
Okay, so let's move forward. Thank you, everyone. Thank for participating on poll. Now let's move forward, and then Vidji, here is question for you again. Given the different types you talked about, could you give us a example or maybe common one to show usual cost and risk involved in this situations?
Right. This is the important part of this webinar. I mean, many of you actually are familiar with the terms and using that in your maybe in the not in, if not for daily basis, but at least in a regular basis, you come across type of assignments. But the challenges facing the company or the employee could be different from company to company or from individual to individual. But I separated these challenges and showing from employer's perspective first. What are the challenges the employer is dealing with when sending people from one country to another? One is actually to design the compensation, because it's not just moving one person with your own gross salary and say, okay, I'll pay you for the travel. That's not the way to do it. So you have to factor in a lot of elements to make a compensation package that would be attractive for the employee to move and easy or maybe strategically important for the employee to manage. And then once you have decided that compensation package, it's not going to be a normal payroll function. Payroll has to deal with a lot of other issues like paying in foreign currencies, two different countries, maybe split currency, and pay the compensation in different accounts or on different accounts. So these are a lot of issues. And then you have this tax and social security compliances and reporting. In a very normal day for a local employee, taxes and social security are deducted and it is reported bi-monthly or monthly or whatever, depending on the country's regulation. And that reporting actually is taken well care of by the payroll. But in as expatriate world or assignment, that's going to be complicated. And then the risk of permanent establishment, what is called the PE issue, is very important and very challenging for employers when it is not carefully managed. It could be a very dangerous one financially and legally for the employer. For example, once we talked about the virtual assignment, which I see 33% of respondents were saying they are using virtual assignment. That means you may have employees for the local position, but they are residing in another country working. Or maybe you send somebody to work extended number of days from their home in another country. That creates a presence for the company, which we call permanent establishment. That is something that every company should deal with in a proactive way. And the complex law, I mean, labor law and employment regulations is not just to deal with your own company, I mean, the own country's labor law, but you have to deal with the two or more countries' labor laws in order to kind of cope with regulation. For example, the vacation rules, the working hours, paternity, maternity leave rights, and all those things are depending on what kind of regulations you are following. And of course, the very important thing is cost multiples and lack of financial overview. So I would like to show you an example to illustrate what I'm talking about, the cost multiples, in a very yeah, thumb rule saying an assignment is actually 2.5, 3 times of cost that you otherwise have with a local position. So in a local position in the home country, you see that package actually is gross salary, and there are some benefits on top, like company pension scheme, insurance company car, or whatever that is coming on top, which you don't see in your pay slip, I mean, in your bank account, but you see as a benefit in kind. But you have to pay the taxes for everything that company is paying you. So you deduct your taxes, which is in the dark blue, and then you will be having a spendable income, which is a disposable income in the home country. So once we start talking about the complex issue of managing compensation package for an international assignment. Here, typically this is for long-term assignment, for example, where you have to factor in other elements like cost of living changes, I mean, adjustment for increased cost of living. For example, moving one from Singapore, India to Norway, where the cost difference is pretty high, then you have to factor in that. And the assignment allowances like mobility allowance, location allowance, well, there are many types. Every company is using to as an incentive for employees to accept this move. And on top of that, assignment benefits like free travels, car, free home, and so on. And when once you receive all these from the employer, the tax and social security cost will be more than double. So employer has other costs, moving, relocation, transferring, family, kids, school, everything has to be calculated in this. So it is becoming 2.5 or 3, or in some cases, it could also become more than 3 times the local salary. So you see that cost multiple is actually an important factor here. So companies doing these assignments should actually have a tool to make a good estimate prior to the assignment, so you know what cost is going to pop up and have a kind of a budget for dealing with that, because it could come year after or 2 years after. Yeah, go. And looking from an employee perspective, this is actually an important issue, that you need to know what type of visa or or work permit you need to arrange in advance, and how long it takes before you can enter and start working. So immigration regulations are important, and the financial planning and cost of living changes. So if I were to accept one assignment with a package that includes nothing but an travel allowance, and I see that after a while I'm struggling financially, it could happen, because third point actually is that I may end up paying taxes in 2 different countries, double taxation issue. And I need to also select which country I have to pay the social security contributions to, whether I could get exemption in the country where I'm working and rather continue my coverage in the home country. That are all decisions employee needs to kind of arrange before they accept the contract and move to the new location. And I'm talking about the trailing compensation and liability. That is something that comes after you wind up and come home. There are responsibilities remaining in the host country, like reporting, sending tax return, winding up your rental apartment agreement. There are a lot of liabilities that needs to be done, even if you have come home. And the payment of bonus and other incentive, which is based on the salary and benefits you receive during the assignment, is paid after you come home. I mean, normally after the year. So it needs to be located financially to that location when it comes to taxation and everything. So, and then last one is actually spouse and kids relocation, as I mentioned, is actually one concern employees have. Yeah, so these are
Yeah.
two. And then if I just to go this example of double taxation, people think, okay, I have paid my taxes in Norway, I don't need to deal with anything in Singapore. But thing is, they do also have tax rules. Singapore also will ask you to pay the taxes, I mean, tax deductions regularly, pay the taxes. So who are responsible for paying and settling these taxes? Actually, this is the employee who is responsible, but then employer has to take a responsibility here. In some companies, mostly big companies, they have introduced a kind of tax protection agreement, which is the kind of a peace of mind document for the employee, knowing that I would never pay more taxes than what I would have paid for the same income in the home company, because of this double taxation issue. So you pay the taxes, and it is not going to be end up paying double taxes. And there is a mechanism to avoid double taxation by using the tax treaties. You can get the credit for taxes paid in other country, but it takes a lot of time. That's what I'm saying, like trailing responsibility. You have to deal with two tax authorities. And in some countries, you see the deviating tax years. So you have to wait maybe 2 years to get your money back. So that is
Ah,
one example. Yeah.
yeah, Vidji, this is really very knowledgeable information about various challenges and risk associated with global mobility for business and for individual as well. As you are global expert, I think you are the best person to explain us how a company can address these issues.
I Yeah, I have seen a lot of cases during my 25 years and dealing with all types of assignment. But important things actually that we need to understand, even if we are not lawyers or legal experts, we need to at least understand that there are regulations that we need to focus on, like immigration, taxation, and so on. So you don't need to understand the complexities into detail,
Mhm.
but you at least know that there are taxation issues, there's social security issues. So understanding the relevant laws and regulations is one thing. And of course, designing a well-defined and comprehensive mobility policy in order to deal with every case equally. Like, okay, one assignee is good to have negotiation, he might get 40%, other one comes and he doesn't get, and that creates a kind of issue for the HR dealing with that. So we need to have a policy or framework that actually makes it easier for employee as well as for the HR to deal with, and then managing payroll and deductions efficiently. So you might end up having one payroll here or one payroll there, or maybe deductions in two countries. How do you actually deal with that? And if payroll could do the same kind of reporting, or they need to do other operations to fulfill the requirements from various governments. So yeah, that is very important. And and of course, internal compliance audits. Like if you are sending people to work in other locations, like on business travelers, or maybe people who actually work from their homes, it is actually advisable to have a kind of audit and see who is working where, how many days are you working. So maybe it's good to have a tool to trace those employees traveling often, and have an audience. I mean, audit saying, okay, do we have a reporting obligation in Belgium? Do we need to do something about it? So it is more cost effective, and legally it's good to start proactively and
Mhm.
engage with professional experts in any company, any HR organization. Uh, Engage someone in the tax or someone in the legal or whoever who could help you to kind of see the risks,
Mhm.
and maybe do something about it. And in order to do all these things and coordinate with all the stakeholders, I think the technology is unavoidable these days and in the future. One kind of technology platform to coordinate and share the data. As I said, reporting requires data from many locations, and it needs to be collected. And cut-off period for reporting 31st December in some countries, 30th June in India, 30th, I mean 3rd or 5th March in the UK. So there are a lot of other fiscal years. Not everywhere you see the calendar year as a fiscal year. So you need to have a technology to deal with all these complexities. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Thank you, Vidji. Now I wanted to encourage audience, all of you. Please feel free to write your questions in Q&A section. And now it is now my pleasure to introduce Frank, the CEO of Spartan Global, having extensive experience in cost optimization and global talent mobility. Frank, we are eager to learn about the current trend in this area, and also if you can tell us how these trends not only affect human resources management but also help business to save cost and grow globally. Frank.
Yes, thank you very much, Kavita. Um, yeah, I've been working for different kind of global companies. I've been staying in 5 different countries, so all the risks and all the challenges Vidya has been talking about, I have have I felt them on my body. So it's really good to have the support from someone who knows what you're dealing with, and in particular also the software, you could say, to for as a company deal with all these challenges. So Vidji and Cross Borders Burton have this software to help out, and without it you are almost lost. I see a lot of people here, and I see you can put the camera on. So I would be happy if many of you would put on the camera so we see who we have in the meeting. It's always nice. Hello. So
I didn't think about it.
yeah. So while you are putting on the camera and smiling, I can move to the next slide. You all are aware of this. We are getting older, all of us, and we are living longer, and the world is getting smaller in the way that we are more moving around. So the borders are not like they used to be, and in many ways this increase the complexity and the cost. And you could say in some cases it also reduce the cost and the complexity, because we need to work cross-border to sort out the problems we are facing today. But this is a real challenge in Europe. If you look at the outer, I was not sure if I can have a pointer here. Is that possible? No. So, but if you look at the you could say the baby boomers, all these people who was born after the Second War in Europe, had a lot of kids compared to what they have today. So all of these people, where you see around from 30, 34 years to 60 years, we are a lot of people. And all of us are working as plumbers, electricians, IT people, healthcare people, doctors, nurses, etc., etc. And we are taking care of the people. You can see you can see the 2020 graph there below the color. So we are a few people who are retired, not so many. So we are many people filling all the jobs today and taking care of a few elderly people. But when all of us now are starting to move up to be retired and living 10 years longer and being more demanding about we would like to have this and that and fix this and this, it will be a huge challenge, because not only are we getting a lot more people who need care, but the people who are going to take care of these people are less few than what we are today. So the younger generation who are moving up to take over our jobs will not be able to take over all the jobs, not the IT jobs, not the plumber jobs, not the mechanical engineering jobs, and not the healthcare jobs. And in reality, we need much more people to take over to take care of all of this. So this is will be a huge challenge. So we need to make it easier for people to move cross-border. Asia have a different, you could say, people demographic. They have a lot of young people, well educated, and they have a less group of elder people. So by making it easier to move around and move and get your education approved, and all of this will help the challenge we have in Europe. In addition to that, we need to digitalize, work smarter, so we can manage without so many people. And if you don't do this, the economic development in Europe will be very much reduced. So this is, and I'm so surprised, when I see all these demonstrations in France about increasing the working life from, I don't know, 60 to 62 or whatever they are talking about. We all need to work longer when we are living longer, and we are healthier longer, so we need to work longer to sort this out. And as you see on this graph, we are living longer and longer and longer, and I believe now we are on the edge of some really technology, you could say, breakthrough on how to sort the aging issue. So I think many people think in the near future we will be living till we are 100 years, and we can work like Thun. He stopped working when he was 99, and many people will start doing this. Yeah, so this was my background into this, you could say, cross-border issue. So we see people, and in particular the youngsters, they want to work from where they are. They want to move around. You have these nomads, IT people. I want to live in wherever and do the work remotely. So this demand is coming up, and more people are crossing borders, working remotely, living in other areas. So the percentage number here is not so high, but the number of people is huge. And we need the companies who are going to handle this need systems and support to handle this properly, so we don't get into too much risk and permanent establishment and taxes and all the things, all the scary things Vidji was talking about. So I think that was the two slides for me, Kavita, or do I have more?
No, Frank. Yes, thank you so much, Frank, for very insightful
That's good.
overview for current trend. Now back to you, Vijay. Can you tell us, or can you tell our audience that how Sputon is uniquely able to help companies dealing with or overcome challenges in global mobility?
I mean, any company who wants to be partnering with a small or medium size or global, I mean, multinational company to have a good strategy for managing mobility needs to understand what their needs are. In some cases where we saw that it wasn't actually an issue until it was kind of burning under the feet. Like, okay, now we have 3 employees in Belgium. We need to report backwards from June last year. So it takes a lot of time and effort to kind of cover up. Rather, we could actually identify the issues upfront by having a workshop. Identify the issues. Do you have an issue or not? If there are assignments or virtual assignments or extended business travelers we identify, then together we kind of sit down and design a kind of a way of dealing with that. We can call it assignment policy or a framework. If companies have a policy already, then we can sit down and see if we need to have review that policy and kind of make it adaptable to the new types of assignments. And of course, after doing that, the policy document is actually not enough to deal with all this. You have to have procedures in place, making a chart of who is responsible for doing what, HR, home HR, host, vendors here and there. So there are a lot of parties involved in one and the same assignment. So we need to understand who is doing what at what time, so we don't actually miss out important milestones. And then once we have done these procedures, we need to coordinate, collaborate with stakeholders. Every stakeholder, whether that is internally HR or tax provider outside in Belgium, in Singapore, or wherever, everybody is in the same platform and understands the need and even share the same data. And in order to do that, maybe in some companies, multiple multinational companies, they do have a global mobility team where they understand those steps and doing it on a daily basis. But in some other companies, an HR manager or director who might be doing this on an ad hoc basis. But then we need to have a kind of a training to do this operation. So we can help them to kind of organize this. And if any company sees that this is too much for us to deal with, can you do it for us? That is kind of an outsourcing. Then we can of course manage the assignment and help them to do the salary review process or incentive payments or financial follow-up and advise how to do and when. Yeah. And of course, there are different ways of building a compensation package. And we can, together with the company, with the help of their policy, we can do the compensation packages, make it easier through the tool that we have. And managing the benefits like insurance, coordinating with other insurance providers, and so on. And cost projection is one of the most important thing that any company should have in upfront, in order to have a kind of a budget and foresee the cost that would come maybe a year after or even 2 years after. So you need to have an estimate and need to know what would come. An assignment contract and letters, in any case, if you send somebody about 1 month to one location, then you need to have an agreement. I mean, you can have employment contract in the bottom, but there should be an additional agreement in order for you to kind of send that employee abroad and do this task. So we can help with the assignment letters and contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, in order to do all these things, we can provide the tool, the technology that is important to make all this happen in a very cost effective and timely basis without having much errors. So technology is in place to do all these things. So that's how we help, and it's not limited to these, but yeah, depending on the needs
Of
companies
course, yeah,
have,
of
we
course.
can we can actually tailor make the services.
Yeah, thank you, Vidji. Thank you for the brief explanation on each and every topic we discussed today. I hope my questions and explanation from Vidji helps our audience to get some insights. Now it's time for takeaway from today's webinar.
Yeah, without having too much detail into that, I hope the audience have got a kind of yeah, idea about what types of assignments are there. What is really an assignment? What needs to be kind of in focus whenever you have an employee not sitting with you in the same location but working from somewhere. And then the legal and financial challenges we have seen, and a policy, you have to have a framework. I mean, policy is not a big book, but it could be a one paper, but it should be written down. This is what we provide for our employees going abroad on a short long-term assignment. And technology and expertise is needed, and adapting to workforce trends. Like Frank mentioned, this world is moving in another direction where skill shortage is going to be huge in many Western world. How are we going to deal with that? Are we going to use the same package, same way of doing? It's culturally different, cross-border telework framework. I mean, evolving global workforce. That is actually something happening, and that makes the cost actually an important factor here. And regular tracking and audits actually is utmost important. See where your employees are working from, what you are saying yes or no to. So this is actually the EU framework for teleworking has become an important tool within the European Union to make that happen. I mean, employees can still work from their home for up to 40%, 49%, I mean, up to 50%. So these are the takeaways. I hope that helped. And
Yep.
if any questions are there, we are happy to answer later because the
Yeah.
time is up.
Yeah, a very special thanks to our audience for your support today. You can reach us on LinkedIn or the Spartan website, or also you can follow us on Facebook. We should like to go through your questions. I think we can take one question at least, Vidji, now. And then we are open to discuss any topic you have. Additionally, we would like to know from your side that what topics you would like us to cover in our next session. So, yeah, Vidji, you wanted to take one
I think,
question?
yeah, it's, is it
Eh,
Matthew? Yeah.
Yeah, can I? Hello, hi. This is Matthew. I'm from India. In fact, I'm a HR professional, and I must thank you all of you. And the Spartan team is a wonderful session and very informative and very useful. And definitely, I would like to connect with you later the period. and being the HR people in the organization, because so the HR person always facing a challenges when it is coming to the management. Definitely they will look at the cost optimization. When it is coming to the employees, then they always look at saving potential when you're talking about cross border or global mobility. So that is what we face. So after attending the session, I got a lot of insight on the session. So my question to you is, Vidji, this could you please explain the tax compliance and global payroll under this global mobility?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Matthew, and thank you for the words. And I'm very happy that you actually see this as a positive seminar. And when talking about the global payroll and compliance, I mean, you have the. I mentioned the payroll as one of the important part in this value chain of managing global assignments. When you're talking about the global payroll, it is actually the way of operating and making all the obligations in various countries. So you cannot actually do everything that is needed in Singapore through the payroll in Norway or from India. If you are sending somebody from your company and paying the employee from your payroll in India, and he's working in Singapore, and Singapore is actually requesting employee or the employer to kind of do the same operation like in payment of deductions and payment of tax and EPF contributions on a regular basis. So you need to have a local presence in that company, I mean, country, in order to do that obligation. But if you don't have a local presence or local payroll in Singapore, then you can actually use a global payroll provider. So the operation that they actually are taking care of is making the compliance. So tax compliance coming because you are in two different countries, and this new country actually is requesting you to pay the contributions regularly and tax deductions regularly. And if you become taxable in that country, then that payroll should actually deal with reporting your salary correctly to the host country, so that the tax payments will also be correct, and then you take that back to your home country and claim the credit based on the tax treaty. So global payroll operation is actually an important thing for companies moving employees around the world, but I mean, they don't have local presence in everywhere. But then again, we talked about the PE. That is another issue. So it's not just moving them to a global payroll. So we have to look very carefully into what we are doing. So yeah, that's a good question. But we can elaborate more if you need more
Yeah,
explanation. But
thank you,
yeah,
thank you.
later.
I think I got the some of the input. Thank you so much for your the response. Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for your question. I hope our audience have more questions or more topics to discuss on, but we are already running out of time. So I would like you to send us your questions, and we will reach you in no times. And also, I wanted to inform you that we will send you this presentation on your email so that you will have insights with you, and of course, feel free to write any questions you have anytime. Thank you so much. Thank you. You have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all.
Yes. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.